So Trader Joe, I think you could compare it basically to an advanced sushi swap on Avalanche.
Okay.
So basically, like, imagine if SushiSwap and Uniswap launched at the same time, then SushiSwap probably would have like captured way more market share. And the same happened on Avalanche, where you had Pangolin and then you had Trader Joe. And Pangolin was basically just Uniswap, where you could just like exchange tokens. So that's why I think Trader Joe is so successful, because you can see like they're always also selling like a vision. So you can trade. Where I get into that later. But you can also farm, stake. There will be lending markets coming out. You will have governance. And if you go to trade, which is also so cool, it's just such a small feature, but it makes such a difference. It's just the ability to see a chart. And I think the reason why you can be bullish on Trader Joe is if you're bullish on the Avalanche ecosystem. Like people are bridging over to Avalanche, and they want to deploy capital, right? Yeah. So the first thing that you will do is you will look at the blue chips, right? So you have Pangolin, but nobody likes them anymore. And you have Trader Joe, which is like the obvious DEX on.
I still kind of like Pangolin.
Speak for yourself. All right. No, but like I would say that it's fair to say that that most people like Joe more than Pangolin. So like people, when they go over Avalanche and they buy blue chips, they're looking at Joe, they're looking at Benqi, and maybe also Avalanche and so on. So I think that's why like a lot of people go into Trader Joe. And of course, if you just want to like earn additional yield, it will also provide liquidity. And if we can see here on the Trader Joe TVL, it just went absolutely insane, right? We had like 23 million just like a month ago, and now we have 1.25 billion. So that's where also the increase in Trader Joe prices. Yeah. And I don't have the chart right now, but also like Trader Joe makes I think about $1 million in protocol fees every day.
Nice.
And then when you convert XJoe to Joe, XJoe will have increased in relation to Joe, because there's now more Joe in the pool, which comes from the protocol fees. And if we look at the bridging data, and also like you could put this into a liquidity position and also put it on yield Yak afterwards, so that you auto compound it. So that's also an option.
So
and
so with yield Yak going, because for me, again this new kind of pop up in the crypto market, like I was more really focused in kind of this most recent rise, incredible positions and a lot of stuff. And Ramp DeFi was kind of like, from what I understand, a version of yield Yak. Like I really like Ramp DeFi for long term, because essentially what it allows you to do is tap into assets that are staked. Like when you have sunk cost into something, basically taking yield out of that and compounding these things. So is yield Yak a version of Ramp, or how does it kind of work?
Yeah, so I think you could say that it's basically a version of that. So you can see like it's just like auto compounding it. So it's just like it takes a small cut, right, which is put into the treasury, I guess, and you're just like you have APR and APY, right? And if you just constantly like restake your earned fees from like staking an asset, you have the higher APY. So this is what these auto yield farms like YieldYak do. So for example, you could also do it here, and they auto compound it for you. And that's also very cool. You have like single asset staking, which is very cool, because for example, at the moment, because everything is so volatile and the protocol is still developing, I'm not a huge fan of like putting on a Joe AVAX position because of the impermanent loss. But like I like to stake Joe, right? And also, unfortunately, I couldn't find the website. I will do that for the next video.
No worries.
But Taiki made I'm also can encourage everyone to check him out. He's very cool, and he made some videos also about the Avalanche ecosystem. Basically, here we can see just like how much daily inflows there are into the Avalanche ecosystem. And the TVL on Avalanche just. Because I think 2 days ago, there was an announcement that next week, Aave and Curve will come onto the Avalanche. So that's where we saw a massive inflow into Avalanche. So yeah, I don't think this party is over yet. And the way I think about this, so they have 10 million in Avalanche announced as liquidity incentives during the Avalanche rush, right? And if we just look at the current price, which is $70, this converts to 700 million in liquidity incentives. So if you look at the last example, which was Matic, when they announced liquidity incentives, people were still bridging over to Matic when they got like 10% yield. as incentives, right? So I would guess that we could say if every single dollar which is on Avalanche would be used to earn yield, right, to extract this capital, and people would be willing to go over to Avalanche to earn up until 10% yield, this would result in 7 billion on TVL on Avalanche, right? So basically, that's my case where I could see we will top out, and obviously, like, not every dollar will be put to work. So let's just check out what's the current TVL on the Avalanche ecosystem. It rose massively in value.
100%. And I think the trend of Avalanche growth has been so interesting to, like, we talked about that a bit earlier, is how it outperformed everything in this recent kind of market, I would say, correction. And everything else was dumping. Avalanche was doing incredible gains. DeFi Llama, I think, is the best aggregator for this. I've dropped DeFi Pulse down a little bit on my rank. I did like DeFi Pulse for doing the daily DeFi series, but DeFi Llama has a lot more in-depth things. You know what I mean? Like, if it's like Uniswap versus SushiSwap. You know what I mean? Like, Uniswap is great. It's like the pangolin of Avalanche, but Trader Joe and SushiSwap offer so much more.
Yeah,
it's like the optionality.
And absolutely, I think DeFi Llama is very, very cool. Yeah. So basically, like, for my bull case, we are currently sitting at like around 3.5, 3.7 billion. Like, if people want to catch like 10. If it would say like 80% or 9% of everything on the Avalanche ecosystem would go into like yield farming, these fees, I think we could still 2x from here in TVL, because probably like there will be a few people just bridging over like just 1 or 2 days before Avalanche and before Aave and Curve will come on. And what is very interesting, I just saw this now. Just look at this: Trader Joe flipped Benqi in TVL.
Wow.
Yeah.
We should definitely do something where it's like Trader Joe versus Benqi, because Benqi I'm new to. So you, just like you introduced me to Trader Joe.
Yeah, we can do that once Trader Joe launches their lending markets, I think.
That's a good idea. That's good. Is that relatively soon?
I don't know. I don't think they have I think they want to bring it out in October, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Cool. I mean, that was awesome, man. I think Trader Joe is really interesting for Avalanche.
Yeah. But I cut my position by half when it was at $4.1 because it just has very high valuation. So if it dips more, I will buy more. But I think I'm currently fine, because just from an EV perspective, I don't think there's like a lot of more upside. I mean, the bubble could go on and on, right? Mm-hmm. But from a risk perspective, there's more downside now. So I'm staying away from it. I'm more heavy into Avalanche now.
Yeah. Oh man, Avalanche. I think for me, I am interested in picking up some of these other kind of lower market cap projects in the Avalanche ecosystem, but Avalanche itself is pretty great, I think, at least in medium term.
Yeah.
We definitely have to do a more, like, we could probably just do like an hour talk on like the long-term parts of what we were talking about kind of in the middle of this video, is like the long-term part of holding in crypto, because there is so much opportunity cost.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I moved here, because I have no taxes. So I mean, it's also just to free my mind from tax obligations. Like, before that, I always had to think, okay, if I want to sell, I make a taxable event where I have to pay like 45%, right? Which sucks so hard. Yeah. And like now I have to pay 0%, so I can just like shift around my portfolio constantly if I would want to, which makes like my decision process way more fluid. Yeah. So honestly, like, for people who are thinking about moving to a different country for tax purposes, I think that's also a thing which is often overlooked. Like, of course, there's one thing, it's just like from a capital perspective, of course, you save money and you have less taxable events, right? But also just like from a psychology standpoint, like, it is such a hard decision to make if you're thinking, okay, now I would sell now, but then I have like a 45%. So in Germany, at least, you have to pay like 45% taxes on that. So basically, what you're saying is, will this drop by 45%? Because otherwise, maybe this wouldn't have been worth it. So basically, you have to decide, okay, am I just converting to a trader? Am I converting to a long-term investor? Or do I have like some positions which I don't tap into because of tax purposes, and some I do? And if you don't have that obligation, like, from a psychology sorry, my English. If you don't have that obligation from a psychology standpoint, like it's way more fluid how you can operate. So
Exactly.
like for me, that was just such a game changer.
And that's really how it should be. You should not have these random rules built up around you. So that's why, honestly, like again,
I mean that creates inefficient
moving
markets.
to a lower tax country, and that's why it's so interesting. Your move to Tbilisi, Georgia. Like, are you currently taxed as a citizen there and not in Germany, or how does that work?
I mean, I will be taxed like next year, but in Georgia, I won't have to pay any taxes on crypto.
Okay.
So basically, I double my income. That's insane.
There you go.
Yeah, but I still like, because I moved this year, I still have to pay like some taxes in Germany. And I mean, I'm not looking forward to the end of the year with my tax attorney, because it just like, do you know how many wallets I use?
Yeah. No, it's complex.
It's like so
I
hard.
know there needs to be a project. You just like enter in your address and it does it for you. You know what I mean? Like, and I really, again, the point with crypto is that you escape that. You do not have to be in that system. And that's why I like second passports residence.
Honestly, like if the government wants my money, they have to show me. Like, why do I have to tell them? Like, you have to tell me. Like, that's not my problem if you don't know how much I owe you.